Alright guys, what is going on? Today's video is going to be a fun one. If you clicked on this one, I'm sure you're curious to know, and I am also curious to know and figure out how much we spent on the Hentai Hornet. If you don't know, if you've just started recently subscribing to this channel and checking it out, you do know that we give away motorcycles here on the channel. We're actually working on an FZ07 for our new giveaway motorcycle, but the first bike we did was a 2006, maybe a 2004. No one really knows the year. I always seem to forget. I believe it's 2006 Honda Hornet 919 CB900F is what it's known as. That's the bike we wrapped in hentai. That's the bike that was powered by Patreon. It was sort of the MVP, the minimum viable product for our whole Patreon thing, and kind of started this whole cool thing that we do now and has given us a lot of opportunities for the channel. But it was kind of our first go around to see how things would work out. My first thought with the whole project was that, you know, people would want to see me do stuff on the bike and customize it and build it and do things like that. I quickly realized I don't have the skills to do that, and so had to, I did my best. I learned a lot, but unfortunately at the end of the day, not my core competency to do that. So I ended up having to outsource quite a bit of the work. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention today's sponsor for the video. It is Ridge Wallets. Ridge Wallet makes some of the finest minimal wallets you can buy. They make things such as aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, all kinds of cool stuff. This one's actually a carbon fiber one that I have to give away to a special someone. But since today's episode is all about money and counting things up, I thought it'd be a good plug for Ridge Wallets. So if you are looking to save your hard-earned cash and put it in a minimal wallet, check out Ridge Wallets in the link in the description below. Use code Yammie at checkout to get 10% off your order. Let them know that your Yam sent you. Click that link below and support the channel. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that we spent money on was buying the bike. So the cost of the bike was $1,500. From there, we decided on what we were going to fix and change on the motorcycle and tools and things that we needed for it. So I then bought a front fender off eBay for 50 bucks. I then bought an LED 3-pin front turn while signaler adapter for $9. I bought the cam chain for $73.95. Got the cam chain lifter for 59 bucks. Got the cam chain tensioner for 75 bucks. Got the valve shim kit for $99. Got the Pirelli Angel GT is the tire we ended up going with for this bike. Front and rear for $311. We got the OEM engine cover, the alternator cover for $74. We got the OEM Speedo for $95. We got the starter switch for 70 bucks. And one thing I want to keep in mind here is a lot of this stuff came from Bike Bandit. It's a pretty good OEM shop. So a lot of these parts were OEM because, you know, we couldn't really find them on eBay. They were so weirdly specific little things we needed for this bike, and so I ended up having to just go buy an OEM. So like, we bought a starter switch screw, number one for $1, the other one for another $1. And then we bought the horn assembly, a new one for 32 bucks. I ended up having to wire that up custom to make it work. We got an air filter, a new one for $23. Got an LED flasher relay for the bike, so you don't get that crazy hyper flash for 20 bucks. The LED taillight, which is one of the coolest things on the bike in my opinion, for $115. We got the block off plates for 50 bucks. The front sprocket cover was $20. The throttle cables, which were the absolute bane of my existence, and which we'll get into why that costs some extra down there as well. Those were $13. The LED headlight was $160, kind of a big ticket item to make sure that the front headlights looked nice and cool. The tank grips were 65 bucks. The bar end blinkers that we ended up going with, but not we ended up using a different thing for that, but I didn't have time to return it, and so I ended up going on a trip, so I lost my return, or the 30-day return I had for Revzilla or whatever. That was 75 bucks. The quick turn throttle from Sport Bike Track Gear was $72. Bar grips were 40 bucks. I have here assorted gaskets, you know, things like the, there's all these little gaskets I had to pick up for the bike whenever you tear it apart. That was $88. Then I bought at Maxim Honda, I did a big trip out there. I got fluids, pads, a new chain, sprockets, all kinds of stuff. That was $542.64. And here's where the the stuff starts getting a little bit more fun. Our first mechanic's visit for the motorcycle was 120 bucks. He was coming to check out the throttle cables and all that. The second mechanic's visit was another $120. Came to finish that job and to do some other stuff on the bike. Had to buy insulator clamps for the throttle bodies off eBay. Those were $60. I realized that those were the wrong ones. They were too old and brittle to use. Had to buy another set of them. Those were $45. Had to buy, it says here, assorted parts from Bike Bandit. That might have been anything like some more gaskets or pads or fluids or this and that. That was about 90 bucks. We then had to pick up our donor bike with the new engine in it. That was $800. I wish I had done that from the beginning. That would have made this project so much easier, but we're gonna get into that later in the video. And then right now I'm still waiting on the final bill from Maxim Honda, but you know, the labor for the engine swap and the check over and the tech check and tech inspection and all that, I'm gonna ballpark it at $1,500. That's what my guy has told me so far for it. A couple things I didn't include here were like different tools I needed to buy because it's not specifically related to the motorcycle, and those are like investment pieces that I can use later in the garage. So I probably spent another $500-600 just buying tools and other things for the garage that I just didn't have to work on this bike, but we're not going to include that. So our budget for this bike was $4,000. That's the money I had set aside to do this little project. The amount that we ended up spending was $6,465. So we are 62% over budget on what we planned. All things considered, it's not terrible, right? Like, it is pretty bad if you look at, you know, it's like, oh, we were like 2,500 bucks over our initial budget. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was a really fun learning experience. I had a really good time, honestly, learning and understanding all this stuff about the Hornet and the bike, and I feel much more competent in my abilities to diagnose problems nowadays. But the thing I come back to, honestly, is like, at the end of the day, guys, like, it's, you know, while you can find really good Craigslist deals, and I truly believe they are out there, and I've seen tons of, I mean, our FZ07 was a used bike we bought, right? It's not to say that every used bike is going to be, I'm just going to say it, a wretched piece of shit like our anti-Hornet was, but you got to look carefully. You got to look really, really carefully and see what you're really getting yourself into there, right? To be honest, you know, because the patrons chose this bike, my hands were a little bit tied. I would have personally not purchased this motorcycle had I gone and looked at it, because it had been low-sided, it had done this, there was quite a few things wrong with it, the ticking noise with it, but I wanted to commit to it. I committed to it that the patrons chose it, and so I bought it, and so we were going to do it, because that's what I thought of it this way, like, people signed up for that community experience, for that democratic experience, and it would have been really just shitty for me to have said, no, we're not going to do this, and to be dictatorial about it, and to say that we can't do this and we can't do that. And you know what? Like, a lot of people have lambasted me for getting a whole new engine for the Hornet, but guys, at the end of the day, I'm giving the bike away. I'm not going to give the bike away and have it not work correctly, you know? Another thing actually came up while I was actually traveling out in the UK, that they called me about the bike and they needed to fix another thing on it. And at the end of the day, I just thought, you know what? Like, it's just, my dad would say this. He would say it in Portuguese, dinheiro vai e vem. Money comes and goes. It's not a huge deal. And for me, it's really important. The most important thing is that the bike works properly, that the winner, Eric, gets a bike that he can be proud of, that will run correctly, and that's not going to cause him too much headache. You know, bikes are always going to cause you a little bit of headaches, but as much as I can do to reduce that, I'm very happy with. So yeah, I think it's a really fun project. It's a shame that I, just given my travel schedule lately, have not been able to check out the Hornet and do much with it. It's still up at Maxim Honda getting finished up. It's been up there for, I think, a month at this point. It's been up there forever. They're taking quite some time to finish it because it's a pretty big job. And yeah, at the end of the day, you know, would I have done something like this for myself? Personally, no, right? Because if you look at the total cost, let's round it up to $6,500. that buys you a really nice bike. That buys you a used FZ09, for example. That gets you a brand spanking new FZ07. That can get you an R6 if you want. I mean, $6,500 is a great budget for a motorcycle to get you something brand new if you want, something lightly used that's really great. I mean, even $4,000 buys you a whole ton of bike, but doing it this way is the classic example of penny wise and pound foolish, right? So it was, you know, given the unique circumstances of this motorcycle, totally happy with it, really had a lot of fun with it, but for me personally, probably wouldn't have done it. Anyways, guys, so yeah, Hornet came out to $6,500, just about, where, you know, 65% over budget or whatever. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you think of the Hornet and this whole situation. Always happy to hear what's going on with you guys. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this one. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.